What's going on, guys? Welcome back to your favorite construction channel. This is the channel where we discuss information related to construction, to design, to engineering, to architecture, to real estate, and everything in that bracket. Okay, so if you're on this channel, please if you are new to this channel, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. And if you are a returning subscriber, we appreciate you being present here. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for watching our content, and thank you for very much appreciating us. Okay, so in this video, we are going to discuss basically the document that you actually can't build without. Yes, you can't build without these documents that I'm going to be sharing with you in this video. First of all, you actually can build with none of these documents. Yeah, in Uganda, anything is possible. You can actually build without any of these things. You can build without a plan, you can build without a structural design, you can build even without approvals, right? You can build without anything literally by just, telling the builder, you do like this, and then the building is up. Okay, so in this video we are going to discuss the documents that you can't build without. The building we're talking about is actually building right. So you can't actually build right without these documents. First of all, I'm not going to really mention them in a chronological order. I'm just going to be mentioning them out of the blue, okay? But also, just a heads up, you can actually build without. You can build with just some of these documents, not all. Some of them are compulsory, some of them are essential, some of them are mandatory, and others actually are not, okay? So to start with, I want to start with one of the rarest documents, and that is the LC1 letter. That is the letter that actually is written by your LC1 chairperson, that is your local chairman, introducing you to the council that they actually know this person. Now, if you are building in different areas, you'll find that a lot of areas in Uganda, they actually do not require that document. If you go and you have your plans and you've taken them for approval, not all municipalities or not all town councils will actually ask you for these documents. Not all of them will ask you for a letter from your local chairperson. Yeah, but because there has been a lot of issues with land wrangles, when two people are fighting over the same plot of land, one will just go and start construction so that he can use it as evidence in court to show that I even started building, I even got approval. So in scenarios like that, you'll find there are areas where land wrangles are a lotly prevalent. So when you take your plans to the local council for approval, they'll ask you, we need a letter from your LC chairperson to show that they actually know you and that you actually own that land. Because a lot of these other land documents can actually be forged. If you're building in places like Kajansi, you will need that. If you're building in places like Wakiso, you will need that. If you're building in places like Kasangati, you actually will need that. So that letter is basically introducing you by your chairman to the town council that you actually know this person and that he is going to build in this area. Okay, in a lot of areas really around, you don't need that document as long as you have the rest of the pre-requirements for approval. Okay, so the other document is a land title. Of course, this is for people who are actually building in private Milo land. Yeah, not really on Kawaka's land. Usually people on Kawaka's land don't have titles, so they basically just have sketches of how their land looks like, the dimensions and all that. But when you have a private Milo land, you actually have a title. That title shows the plot number, it shows the block number, and it also shows the location of the plot. Also the names or the owner of the title itself. Okay, so a land title is really important. Now, that brings me to what we call a survey report. In areas where you have which is not probably private Milo land and it's Kabaka's land, the dimensions actually, you might have the dimensions as maybe 50 by 100 by 130 by 100 and this, but those are not really exactly accurate. That's where the surveyor comes in. When you're building in a place and you don't know where the markstones are, or sometimes you have a very old title and the dimensions are not to scale. They are there, it's 30 meters, but it's not exactly to scale. That's why you need a surveyor to actually make a survey report to show exactly the shape of the land and the size of the land. That's very important. Actually, in some areas, in some town councils to build, you must show a survey report. You can't build in Kampala KCCA without a survey report. It shows the different encroachments that have happened on the land. It shows if probably they built a new road there, it needs to be showed on the title. If there is an electricity pole, if there is a drainage system by the council that is passing through there, it has to be shown. If there is a pipe of national water running under your land, it has to be shown there, okay? So that is basically to avoid all discrepancies of finding that, oh, we've designed something and then we reached on ground and it actually doesn't, what the title shows doesn't actually depict what exactly is on ground, yeah? So that's a very important, is very important. Now the other one of the most important documents, actually this is the most important document, is the architectural design. Now an architectural design is basically what is famously known as the plan, yeah, the plan of the house. Though whereas it's actually referred to as the plan of the house, it's actually more than just a plan. A plan is just really viewing the plan, the house from the top. It has the floor plans, it has elevations, it has also, most importantly, artistic impressions. I've seen in scenarios where people want to build and then they have a plan, they have elevations and all that, and they don't have artistic impressions. Artistic impressions are pictures showing how the house is going to look like on the outside, yeah? The plan in our age and era cannot be sufficient to actually provide enough information for someone building or a contractor to actually pull everything from the plan and put it on ground as it is. Yeah, so basically when you look at details on the plan, sometimes it shows how the drainage of the compound is going, which parts have grass, which parts are green, which parts are not, and it shows the roof plan, basically everything, how the rooms and spaces are being arranged, the size of bathrooms, sizes of windows and all of that. So an architectural design really is like the benchmark of everything. Before you build, at least with the plan, you can build even when you don't have all other documents, okay? Yeah. Then the other document that I should talk about probably is the structure design. Now, a structure design is basically the design that is showing the iron bars, I mean the reinforcement detail, the sizes of iron bars, their arrangement, the sizes of the rings, okay? How deep is the foundation, what's the size of the pad footing, okay? What's the reinforcement in the pad footing, what grade of concrete are you using? Are you using grade 25? Are you using grade 30, grade 32.5? What grade are you using, okay? All that is detailed in the structure design. Now, to be frank with you, if you take approvals outside of the picture, you actually can build without a structure design. I mean, by any engineer who has developed a good judgment of how reinforcement should be arranged in a building, you actually can build without a structure design. The challenge with that is that there is a lot of speculation. So most of the times you are designing so that the building is safe. I mean, when you predict that we'll need 4 iron bars in this beam, you'll say, because I haven't designed, I will put extra 2 bars just in case I haven't calculated well. So you find yourself over designing or putting more reinforcement than the building actually requires to stand on its own. And then also the structure design, remember when we are doing the structure designs, we actually use softwares. Quite a number of softwares on the market that can actually do structure design. Whereas they are designed to be used by technical people, that is structural engineers, someone who has had a lot of technical know-how in the construction industry can actually use those softwares to produce a structure design. The problem with that is that a lot of these softwares are based on foreign systems. Yeah, usually the ones on the market use the Eurocode. The Eurocode is actually based in the UK. So the problem with that is that when you get different elements from a building, that is mainly, I'm talking about storage buildings, and then you put them in the software, and the software automatically calculates for you everything that you'll actually need, the reinforcement bars, the details. It can even produce for you some things that are working drawings. Now, the problem that comes with that is that most of these softwares will over-design. That's why you find people when they're building and they're putting Y16s in beams, and there is even no span, there is no clear span that exceeds 5 meters or 5.5 meters. Now that's a big issue, because whereas you're trying to cut a cost of getting a structure design from actually a structural engineer, is that here you're actually paying more, but this time in materials, not in the design itself. So you find you're having a lot of reinforcement, you're having to make a lot of strong concrete even when the building actually might not require it. So that's very important. So at the end of the day, I had talked about the architectural design. So the architectural design has to be stamped by a registered architect, and the structural design has to be stamped by a registered structural engineer. Now, all those, of course, they're on blueprints and all that. Why I'm saying must or that they have to be stamped by this and that is because this is a pre-requirement for approval. You can't take your plans or your structure design for approval unless they're actually stamped by a registered engineer and registered architect, respectively, as I mentioned before. Also, just to clarify a bit between the architectural design and the structure design, the architectural design is basically for bungalows, and then for storage buildings, you need both an architectural design and a structure design, because a bungalow does not have structural columns mainly. It's really at a very minimal level. It's basically walls and the roof and all that. There's no need of a lot of digging, excavation, and putting pad footings and all that, yeah? But when it comes to a structure, to a storage building, you have to have a structure design, because it's basically the structure frame that is holding the house together. There's a suspended slab over the ground floor, so it has to be structurally designed. So if you're building a storage building, you must have a structure design. For a bungalow, you can do it without a structure design. It's actually not a pre-requirement for getting approvals from the local authorities. So let's go now to the Geotechnical Investigations Report. This is a report usually for areas that are in cities. You know how Uganda has been cityfied these days. Cityfied. Not sure if that's the right word, but many areas have actually been made cities. We have Gulu City, we have Jinja City, we have Mbale City, we have Mbarara City, we have Kampala City. So all those are now cities. So as they become cities, the planning becomes more stringent. So whoever is going to develop in such areas or areas that are within the vicinity of the city, the regulations become more and more and more. So if you're building a building, if you're putting up a structure that has more than 3 floors, it is compulsory to actually make a geotechnical investigations report. Now, this report basically shows the strength of the ground at different levels. So this is basically a document that is going to show you, that is going to aid the structure design. The structure design this time is going to be based on geotech report. That document is going to, basically here we go to the ground, we dig different try pits on the ground where the building is going to sit, and then we take those soil samples to the laboratory, and then we do different tests on them. There are shear box tests, there are direct core penetration tests, all those tests involved, okay? After getting those results and testing them in the lab and getting the results, then we use those results in actually making a structural design, just to be sure that the ground where you're building the 3 floors is actually able to hold them, or if it's not able, at what depth must the building be for it to be able to carry that building, okay? So that's very important. That one, if you're building 3 levels and above, it has to be there, and it has to be stamped by a registered engineer, okay? That's very important. Or it has to have a stamp from a certified laboratory, a laboratory that is certified to actually test construction materials, and that's very important too. Then the next one we can go to is the electrical, mechanical, and plumbing drawings. Usually they call them MEPs, the MEP drawings, okay? Though to some extent, it's mainly in the line for residential buildings, mainly in the line of electrical and plumbing drawings, okay? I think I've explained this before. Basically, this is where all the lighting points are actually indicated, how the wiring is going to go in the whole building. Now for storage buildings, it even becomes more interesting or more necessary, because when you've made an error or a mistake, you can't go back and chisel a slab because you forgot to pass through a conduit that is going to carry a wire. If there are cameras that are going to be in the building, a lighting point has to be provided, a power point has to be provided where the camera is going to pick the power from. If there's going to be a router somewhere, a power point has to be provided for where it's going to pick power from, both in the walls and in the slab. So with that kind of arrangement, of course, it's possible to actually build without these drawings, because at the point of the slab, you can just bring an electrical engineer or an electrician to come and, provide different wiring points. The problem with that is that there'll be a lot of speculation and guesswork, yeah? I mean, someone might say, oh, this is a living room, so we are just going to provide for one light in the center. But in the design, you may find that you actually didn't want just one light. You wanted one light and maybe 4 others in the sides. And if the electrician on ground has nothing to follow, he will just use his personal judgment. And if you don't pass through those conduits earlier, if you're to check for most of the older buildings, you'll find that there are wires running on surfaces of walls. You'll find that there are plumbing pipes that are actually running on surfaces of walls, which really does not look desirable in the modern age. But with electrical and plumbing drawings, a lot is planned very well, that even when you reach a building, you hardly can see any pipe, or you hardly can see where any pipe is actually coming out of the building. And that's very important to note, okay? Then the other document that I can talk about is the bills of quantities. There's what they call a bills of quantities, and then there's what we call a material schedule. For a lot of people, we confuse the bills of quantities and the material schedule. But because we are talking to a layman, sometimes you can call a material schedule a BOQ, because that's what they'll easily understand, yeah? But the bill of quantities basically showing you, for example, the cubic meters of the concrete that you need. Let's say you're going to cast a slab like this one, you'll know I'll need maybe 20 cubic meters of concrete. Now that's the quantity of concrete you'll need. But to break it down into materials, that's what they call a material schedule. That what makes the concrete is maybe for these 30 cubic meters of concrete, I will need maybe 1 sinotrack of aggregate, I will need maybe 1 sinotrack of sand, of lake sand, and maybe I'll need 100 bags of cement to achieve that. That's what is actually a bill of quantities. But most of the times we just call it bill of quantities even when it's actually a material. This is basically for planning purposes. If you know you're building maybe in phases, or you're building and you have limited cash, you want to know how much is the building going to cost me by the time I finish up to this level. Even the bill of quantities can actually be phased in a phased manner. Maybe you do it from the foundation up to the ground slab, then you do for the walling, then you go to the slab, then you go to the first floor, but it's phased in a manner, but you know at the end of the day how much are you going to spend. It's difficult to have this very accurate, but in most of the cases, if it's done well, it should be within tolerances of plus minus 10%, 15%. So let's say you plan for 100 million for a certain phase, you might want to have 110, just in case something happens. It's really a rare occurrence, but it can happen, okay? Then the other documents that you might need. Then for the structure design, I forgot to mention that there is what they call a structure design report. So for many of these areas, you will need, besides the structure design, it should actually, the structure design should come with a structure design report. This is basically a booklet that is showing the calculations of how actually the structure was designed to be. I mean, if there's a gym on the building, someone who is approving at the council level can see there was a gym building, and we estimated that the gym is going to carry this kind of loads, and then we've designed for them in this manner. Also, this structure design report also helps if you want to make any future modifications on the building. For example, if they come to make modifications and they want to know what was this building designed to carry, okay? If it was designed to carry machinery, vibrating machinery, it also can act as a gym. But of course, all those are detailed in the structure design report. Usually that's something that people don't even care about, because you can't easily understand unless you are really a technical person. Then, the other document I think we should talk about is network drawings. Now, in Uganda as a country, we haven't really developed enough capacity yet to produce network drawings at this lower level of residential houses, But of course, when you have bigger buildings like maybe shopping malls, bigger apartments, bigger hotels, you can actually do network drawings, but they are quite expensive to make. So what are network drawings? They're the ones that actually involve how the internet or how can I call it? So these drawings are basically going to show us how the communication in the house is going to be. That is digital communication. If you have cameras in the house, how are the cameras linking to each other? If you're going to have fiber internet, where is the router going to be? Where is the home office going to be, so that you can provide an Ethernet port there? Where the TV is going to be, so you can provide an Ethernet port there, so that you can easily connect maybe to Netflix and things like that. You have a port there for internet, so the TV doesn't actually have to use Wi-Fi, because sometimes Wi-Fi can be weak, but Ethernet connection is actually much faster in most of the cases. Basically things like that. Where is the antenna going to be, and things like that. But for most of those, ordinarily we usually just plan for them. Now that really depends on your engineer, the exposure of your engineer on site who's actually guiding you through all this. So when that stage comes, you can easily provide for all those things. Sometimes it's not really worth it to provide a network drawing for something that is just going to have a TV and maybe a router somewhere and just a few cameras here and there, okay? Maybe even intercom. Intercom is that camera system that you use where when someone is at the gate, there's a camera and they can actually speak to you while you are in the house. So if you have a guest or a visitor and they need something from you and they've come at the gate, you can actually see them and even talk to them through a certain telephone network. Okay, so anyway, then the other documents that I might talk about, this might be when you're building maybe a high-rise residential apartment of sorts, okay, or maybe a bigger commercial building. But this channel is mainly more about the ordinary buildings, really, not more than 6 floors and things like that. But that is the fire management plan. If you're to look at many apartments that are to be designed and they have maybe five floors or more, even 4 floors. Actually, even if you're building a 2-floor apartment and you're within maybe Kampala, KCCA, a fire management plan is very important. Yeah, because you need to know that you're having people living in this space. You might want to provide for a fire exit or an emergency exit. You might want to provide for a fire assembly point. You might want to provide for the hose reels, of the fire hose reels, where the fire extinguisher is actually going to be used in case there is a fire or anything of that sort. Yeah, but that's that's when you're working within maybe areas like KCCA or areas that are very, very close to the city and the regulations are a bit more. But as you go outside, you don't have to provide for a lot of all that, but it's important for the developer and for the users of the building to provide for things like that. Yeah. Then I think those are the documents that are very important that you need actually when you're going to carry out your construction. But a disclaimer, you can actually build without these documents or without some of these documents. It depends on where exactly you're going to build, what are the regulations in that place, and what is required of you or the engineer or the architect to involve in the plan before it can be submitted for approvals. Okay, so I hope you've had a lot to learn in this video. Thank you very much, guys, for watching, and have yourself a good time. I'm Darwin.